4 days ago, I covered the Season 5 Warzone meta changes, and in the video, I go over a bunch of changes that explain kind of how the short range and long range meta, but when it came to the long range meta, I mainly focused on the longest possible range, which for some of these weapons, they do go up to 70 meters, and someone actually commented, may I suggest that you consider the fact that most realistic long range kills will actually happen up to about 50 to 60 meters, something that would change the long range meta list. So I decided to do a little bit of data collecting. We get a lot of kills that happen in the 20 meter range, the 30 meter range, the 40 meter range, and then it starts to fall off right around the 50 meter range. So I thought it'd be pretty important to maybe look at some weapons that maybe excel within 50 meters. And this can be done relatively easy on true game data. You just go ahead and plug in some weapons and then start eliminating the worst ones. So over here in the 40 meter range, kind of what we're looking at, the 40-ish to 50 meter range, we can see kind of some of these lines that are towards the top. I would say that the yellow, the green, and the red are probably worth getting rid of for this, just purely based off that alone. So we'll get rid of the red, which is the ISO. We'll get rid of the Lockman, and then we'll also get rid of this green one, which is the Cast-Off 7.4U. And then once we add the Razorback and a bunch of the LMGs, we can kind of do a similar process. We can see the Tempest Razorback isn't particularly good, and I'd probably get rid of the 7.62, but you can see it's kind of crazy within 30 meters, and I'm sure if we put it on a barrel, we can extend that range a little bit and perform a little bit better. After we add that Lockman 7.62, it gets a little silly. We can kind of see where some of these are starting to line up. We can see the SO14 isn't particularly good. Cast-Off is barely hanging on, but we have this other blue one that kind of falls off a little bit sooner, which is the HCR. We can also see that the RAL falls off pretty quickly. And then we also have this orange one, which is the Icarus. So you can see why maybe some of these LMGs, although their furthest TTK tends to shine or outshine some of these other options, within that 50 meter range, they do have a little bit more drop-offs. And after adding the TAC-V as well as the single fire TAC-V, you can kind of see how some of those line up, which they actually perform pretty good. And the nice thing about the TAC-V is the barrel. And I know this is something that I've talked about in the past where it's not really helping recoil, but if you limit your ranges to about 50 meters, which is kind of what we talked about, you can actually make some huge changes, whereas some of these other barrels aren't seeing those same benefits. So we can look at a quick example here. If I go ahead and go to the 7.62 and I can go to the barrel, we can go and see that this one's going to increase it by 24%. That's a pretty big deal. So with the magic of editing, now they all have their best barrel for range, and we can kind of see how they tend to settle out. I think the Lockman 7.62 in full auto is definitely broken, but I think for the average person, it is hard to use. I think it's one of those more gimmicky guns that get you those death comms that are so funny to hear. We can see that the Rep H is right here, kind of dominating from that 40 meter all the way up to 66 meter range. We can also see the TAC-V also does pretty good from about 40 meters all the way to about 55 meters. So that's kind of like in the sweet spot. And below that, it's doing really good. The Cast-Off 7.62 might be a little bit of a sleeper for the sniper support if you can get the build under the control. For that reason, you can kind of see where it's going to perform. We can go ahead and go down the line. RPK is kind of in the mix. Not particularly the great option. It's kind of even there with the Cast-Off 7.62. Keeping in mind that in some of these instances, maybe you can get a faster TTK with just one headshot. So maybe that would change slightly. This is just factoring in, on average, what are you most common going to get? So it's definitely something to consider. Even when I add the Cronin Squall in there, you can kind of see it's kind of more towards the top end. That's really why it wasn't much part of the list. But when you kind of remove those options, you kind of see where they sit. So definitely worth trying. Maybe the 7.62 on the Cast-Off, maybe the Rep H, even the RPK, the Socken, Lockman 7.62, TAC-V in single or full auto. And let me know how it goes in the comment section. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.